Hello everyone, I'm Louise Chunn. I'm the founder of welldoing.org, which is a therapy platform which matches people with therapists online or in person. And I'm talking to Andrew Keefe about how therapy can help connecting your body and mind through exercise. Andrew is an EMDR therapist who has dealt extensively with trauma. He offers solution-focused brief therapy as well. And he is, in addition to that, a personal trainer who fervently believes in the power of exercise for a healthy mind and body. He sees clients in East London and is available on the welldoing.org platform. So, welcome, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
I wanted to start off by asking you to explain EMDR, including the words that EMDR.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. It stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is a bit of a mouthful, and it's. The best way to start is to think about it as not a talking therapy. So I'm a psychodynamic psychotherapist as well as was Wendy, the previous speaker, and that is a fantastic therapy which can take you very, very far and uncovering the unconscious and uncovering things which are difficult to talk about. But there are some, particularly when you're dealing with trauma, some trauma is held very deeply in the non-verbal part of the brain on the right-hand side, right the way down in the amygdala, and also in the body. And hence it's very difficult to talk about, to put into words, often dealing with people who are maybe sexually abused when they're very young and might just have fragments, little pieces of memories, not clear events to talk about. And rather than talking about those events, and possibly when they think about these little fragments of memories, little snippets, what happens is you get a physical reaction. You feel things very, very powerfully in your body, emotions very powerfully in your body. So literally on one level, what you would do rather than helping somebody talk about a very difficult memory is that you would ask them to bring up what they do remember, you'd think about the negative thoughts you have about yourself, the emotions you feel, where you feel that in your body. And then you would very simply just ask somebody, while thinking about that, just follow my fingers with your eyes. And I would move my hand from right to left. And this may sound incredible. How does that help? What seems to happen is that it replicates rapid eye movement sleep, the phase of the night when you're dreaming. If you're seeing somebody sleep, their eyes will be flickering away behind their eyelids. This is the point of the night when the brain is sorting through the events of the day and deciding what to remember, what not to remember, and putting memories away in the brain's library, the hippocampus, which has a sense of time or place. But in a trauma, what happens is that the brain's processing mechanisms just get overwhelmed by the amount of information, the amount of data that's coming in. So the memory can't be processed, and so it stays as raw experience in another part of the brain, the amygdala, which is the alarm system of the brain. And the amygdala doesn't have a sense of time or place. So if you get triggered, if something happens to remind you of the original event, the amygdala thinks it's happening again. And at that point, we'll start pumping out stress hormones, the adrenaline, the cortisol, etc., that it did exactly the same way that it did at the first time, the original event, to stimulate your fight or flight mechanism, which is the mechanism to get you to protect the body by literally fighting the danger or running away from it. And EMDR, by replicating that, and also by directing the attention from left to right, you connect two bits of the brain: the bit of the brain that thinks that the trauma is still going on, and another bit of the brain, the left side, that knows that whatever happened, it's over and it's in the past and you're safe. And it's by putting those two bits of information together that, and it's a emotionally and physically intense therapy, but very powerful. A lot of people found it very helpful.
And did that lead to the body-mind connection that you're also now into?
Yeah, absolutely. It was one of the very powerful influence on me, because I began to notice, as I said, you're dealing with emotion that's trapped in the body and trauma that's trapped in the body, and EMDR can relieve it as well. But it's also I found increasingly dealing with potential movement that's trapped, movement that wasn't allowed to happen. Dealing with, for instance, people who've been unfortunately sort of sexually assaulted or raped and held down, pinned down, trapped. awful position to be in, terrible, very traumatic position to be in. But physiologically, what's happening there is extremely difficult as well, because, as I said, your amygdala is pumping, the fight or flight mechanism is triggered. So stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, your sympathetic nervous system is your heart's pumping, blood's going around the body, the lungs are getting more air in. You're getting ready, literally, to fight or to run away. But if you can't move, either because you're terrified or you're trapped, that can be a really distressing, painful place to be, and that's what gets triggered every time you're reminded of it. And increasingly, in therapy, I was finding we'd get to a point in the processing where the client was saying, I want to just punch that guy. I want to kick him. I want to get him off me. I really want to get him away. So I'd say, okay, well, punch, kick, move. And I was helping people release it. Well, just keep following my eyes. Keep processing. But if you want to kick, then just don't kick me, obviously. But punch, and we'll do it safely. So we'll expend that energy. We'll release that movement. We'll expend that energy, and we'll do it in a safe way. And that was an immense relief for a lot of people. And I think that got me really thinking, how much further can we go? Because I met another client who had issues with anger, for instance, and we're doing a lot of work around anger management, and she was talking about, well, the best thing, far better than any kind of therapy, far better than any meditation or mindfulness or anything she'd ever done, was boxing. She used to go to a boxing class and do boxercise, and that helped to get, and so we combined. So that was a very major influence on me. And the other influence was more personally. Sort of 3 or 4 years ago, I was in working in a very stressful position, a very stressful job, and it was around the time a bit longer than actually now, I had needed to start exercising myself because for sort of health reasons, and I was going along to exercise classes, an exercise class in Finsbury Park after work, and I was noticing that I wasn't only getting fitter, but on the nights when I went to do the class, I'd leave work, I'd go and do the class, running around, doing all sorts of things. I'd cycle home, I'd have a shower, and I would be so relaxed at the end of it. I would be much more relaxed than the nights when I just went straight home. I'd get home and I'd be irritable and grumpy, and it would take me a while to unwind, and I'd be snappy. But if I'd gone to do the exercise class, and then I started thinking, these two, I'd be much more relaxed. And these two experiences got me to start asking myself the question: how can I combine these two things together? How could we use exercise to help people with their mental well-being issues, with their stress, their anxiety, their depression, their worry? And it was the search for an answer to that question that led me at the end of 2018 to start training as a personal trainer. And along the way, I've learned all sorts of things about how to get people fitter, but what wasn't expecting was that you have to learn a huge amount of anatomy and physiology as well. Obviously, I think I knew quite a bit about the brain and the head and that bit, but now I've learned an enormous amount about the nervous system and how everything works together. That's really helped my therapeutic practice as well.
So how would your being a personal trainer impact on you as a therapist seeing clients?
Well, one of the ways is that I now always, when I meet somebody for the first time and I assess them, one question I'll always ask is about exercise. And do you exercise? What do you do? How do you find it? What's your experience of that? And invariably, I'd say of my current caseload, probably more than 80%, possibly 90% of people have said in answer to that question, well, I used to exercise a lot, but I stopped a couple of months ago. And now here I am, come to see you for therapy. So a lot of the work begins to be about, part of the work is about how can I help you get back into it. But I think, on one level also, exercise makes you feel better because it releases endorphins, it releases dopamine, it balances out the serotonin levels in the body, so the happy drugs which we need. It helps you feel stronger, you feel better, it breaks down social isolation. There's all sorts of ways that it can help. It also makes you cleverer too. I hadn't really understood, I hadn't known this, but there's a hormone called body-derived neurotrophic factor, which is released in the bone marrow during exercise, and it stimulates the growth of the brain cells. So if anybody's studying for an exam or anything like that, just do exercise. But there's also, I think, it's helpful to kind of think of some specific sort of issues. If you take something like weight management, and a lot of people who would go into exercise might do so because for reasons connected with their weight in one way or another. But often, I was finding, looking at it from the other way, people, meeting people who get into pattern cycles of getting very fit, eating well, going to the gym a lot, losing weight, but then losing motivation, putting it back on, feeling bad about themselves, spiraling down. And if you look at it from the therapy point of view, and again working with trauma, I was learning that a lot of people, not everyone, but some people who have been abused, particularly in younger age, that can provide, also through eating disorders, that can create a very complicated relationship with your body and eating and weight, in the sense of that, and possibly met clients who've talked to me about the need to keep a certain weight as almost as a sort of a protective wall around themselves because of the need to avoid being abused again, and if you're in that position, then the thought of going to the gym and getting is a very complicated thing to do, and the thought of losing weight is a very complicated thing to do. And people who understand how actually it's very simple on one level, just burn off more calories than you take in, but actually somebody's losing weight, there's this need to feel the need to lose weight, but then actually as you lose weight, that changes your identity, your relationship with yourself, and that can cause issues as well. So my work would involve looking at it from both angles, doing the in-depth, the talking, the thinking, the working through the trauma work about the original abuse, making space in the therapy to talk about identity and relationship, etc. But also then somebody can help somebody enter safely into an exercise program and a nutritional program to help them lose weight, but lose weight and in fact, what I talk about now, I don't actually talk about weight management. I would talk about, I'm going to help you get fit. That's the starting point. That's what we're doing. We're getting fitter, right? And then we take the heat out of the emotional heat out of it. Back pain is another very helpful way to look at, because of particularly chronic lower back pain. So back pain's lasted more than 12 weeks. There isn't, and I'm at the moment I'm doing an extra course to qualify as a lower back pain specialist, and it's fascinating because this is the personal training course, the side of it, the exercise fitness kind of course. Now obviously movement and exercise and core work, etc., is very, very good, essential for resolving lower back pain, but they're very explicit in the course about the power of psychological factors over back pain, and actually that if you're depressed or you're anxious or you're stressed or you're worried, that will make your pain worse, actually. And there's a lot of research evidence about this, and this is accepted, so that the kind of exercise prescription, if you like, now for lower back pain is to be doing an exercise program, but also to be doing some therapy around pain management work. And I do EMDR around chronic pain as well. But so this is now something I'm really excited about, how to put those two things together. And that's really fascinating if you think about it, that your mind, this is the root, the core of all of this. Your thoughts, your feelings, your emotional state can make your physical pain worse, or can create it. I mean, this is it's incredibly important when you think about this. Similarly, if you are feeling down and you're depressed or you're anxious or you're worried, physical movement can help you feel better emotionally, right? So we've got this point that, and this, as we know, since Descartes, all the way back those years ago, I don't know, 500-600 years ago, particularly in Western culture, we've had this idea that mind, and what soul and body, as he would have talked about it, Descartes, the French philosopher, I think, therefore I am, that Descartes. He thought that soul and body were separate entities, connected but separate. But now I think increasingly what's happening is we're realizing that mind and body are actually the same thing, right? And that if you want to feel well and healthy and prosperous, you have to work on both, I think, at the same time. And I'm seeing that. But what's really surprised me is on the personal trainers. I mean, was how everyone I've when other personal trainers I've met along the way, people who've trained me, people who've taught me, when I've explained that I'm a psychotherapist and that's why I'm here and I'm trying to do this, they get it immediately. I don't need to explain, that's a brilliant idea. Yep, completely get that. And the reason is because people talk to their personal trainers, right? And people who will be exercising, that people talk to them, they share their stories, they share their worries, they share their emotion, what's going on in their lives, and they use them as a bit like a therapist. I once came across a blog last year written by a counsellor talking about the dangers of allowing your personal trainer to become your therapist. Right? And he was obviously feeling a bit threatened, I think, professionally, but. And so they completely understand that a lot of people who go to gyms and go to classes are doing that to manage some kind of emotional issue, as well as to get fitter physically. Yeah. So,
do you think that other therapists are starting to move this way, or do you think you're a bit of an outlier?
I'm not completely unique. There are a few of us, and I have there's a man called Dean Cashman, who is qualified as a psychodynamic psychotherapist a couple of years ago. I taught him when I was still teaching at WPF, and he has been he was a PT for about 17 years and then decided to become a psychotherapist for those reasons I've just described. He talks about early days of his career, getting home. He'd had 12 PT clients in a day, and he'd just get home and said, I'd get home and had these 12 people inside my head because they'd left their mark on me. Their emotional state had left their mark on me, and there was nothing in his world to help him think about it or learn it. And so he's going. We're on the same journey. He's going one way, I'm going the other. We've had some wonderful conversations about it. There's a couple of other people that I'm aware of, but I think again it's getting. I certainly, colleagues, people I've talked to, I've yet to come across somebody that said, "Why are you doing that? It's a ridiculous idea." When I talk about it and explain it, and I think personally, I think that over the next, it might take 10, 20, 30, 50 years, but eventually the two professions are going to merge. I think that's what's happening. I think we'll get to a point where you have to be a therapist, you have to have a psychological training and a physical training. Physical training could be physiotherapy or osteopathy or whatever, or fitness, as well as, and I think the more we can bring this to, there's so much to learn. I think I was thinking this the other day, that just a very simple example of how my therapy practice, I've improved as a result of becoming a PT. We're taught, if you give somebody an exercise, get down and do some press ups and stuff, you're taught as a personal trainer to move around the person, look at them from different angles, look at them from the back, look at the side, look from the front, look at form, because it's all about the form and are you using the right technique, etc. And it gives you a picture of how that person is exercising. And I do that now in therapy. I've realised that I don't stand up and walk around the room with somebody sitting down, but I move around in my mind and look at the client from different angles and different perspectives, etc. And I'm finding that incredibly helpful. Yeah.
It's really fascinating.